Welcome. This is Cheating Tales Stories. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Before we dive in, let me ask you something that'll make your skin crawl. What if the person sleeping next to you every night was living a completely different life? When you weren't around? My name doesn't matter for this story, but what happened to me? That matters. 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage. 12 years with Celeste, my college sweetheart, and everything seemed normal. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our future plans. She was a marketing coordinator at a local firm. I worked in IT support. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, happy, or so I believed. The whole nightmare started with what I thought was going to be a harmless prank. You see, we'd been having some minor break-ins in our neighborhood. Nothing major, just people going through unlocked cars, maybe checking door handles. Our neighbors had installed security systems, and Celeste kept mentioning we should do the same. I'm pretty tech-savvy, so instead of hiring some expensive company, I decided to surprise her. I bought a small, discreet security camera online, one of those tiny ones you can hide anywhere. My plan was simple: set it up in our bedroom while she was at work, then discover it together that evening and have a good laugh about my amateur spy setup before installing a proper system. The camera arrived on a Tuesday. Celeste had mentioned she might be working late that week on some big presentation, so I figured it was perfect timing. I set the little device up on our bookshelf, nestled between some old photo frames where it was practically invisible. The whole thing took maybe 10 minutes to install and sync with my phone. That evening, Celeste came home around her usual time, not late like she'd mentioned. I was excited to show her my handiwork, but she seemed distracted. Stressed about work, she said. The presentation was more demanding than expected. Actually, she said over dinner, the team might need to do an overnight work session this weekend, maybe even extend it into a girls' trip to decompress afterward. You know how Rachel gets when she's stressed. Rachel was her co-worker and best friend from the office. They'd done weekend trips before. Nothing unusual there. I told her it sounded like fun, that she deserved a break after working so hard. Here's where I made my first mistake. I completely forgot about the camera. Friday evening came and Celeste was packing for her weekend. She seemed different, excited in a way that felt unusual for a work trip. She spent extra time on her makeup, packed clothes that seemed more suited for a romantic getaway than a girl's weekend. When I mentioned it, she laughed it off. We might go out somewhere nice, she said. Rachel found this boutique hotel with a great spa. She left Saturday morning with a kiss goodbye and promises to call. The house felt empty without her. But I had plans too, catching up on some freelance work, maybe watching the game with my buddy Kevin. Sunday afternoon, I was troubleshooting a client's network issue remotely when I got a notification on my phone. The security camera app was alerting me to motion in the bedroom. My first thought was that maybe our cat had gotten in there, even though we always kept the door closed. I opened the app expecting to see nothing important, and my world shattered. There was Celeste in our bedroom, but she wasn't alone. She was with a man I'd never seen before, tall, well-dressed, probably in his 40s. They were intimate, very intimate. In our bed, the bed where I'd kissed her goodbye just the day before. I watched in complete shock as they talked and laughed, like they'd known each other forever. The timestamp showed this was happening right now, Sunday afternoon, when she was supposed to be at some spa with Rachel, 3 hours away. My hands were shaking as I tried to process what I was seeing. This wasn't some random hookup. The way they interacted, the comfort level between them, this had been going on for a while. I sat there for 2 hours, watching intermittently, trying to make sense of it. They ordered room service to my house. They showered together, in my shower. They acted like a couple. In my home. Around 5 p.m., the man left. Celeste spent another hour cleaning up, changing the sheets, spraying air freshener. She was methodical about it, like she'd done this before, many times before. At 7 p.m., my phone rang. It was Celeste calling from her girls' trip. Hey, honey, she said, and her voice sounded so normal, so loving. Just wanted to check in. We're having such a great time at the spa. Rachel says hi. I could barely speak. That's great. Having fun. The best. This place is amazing. I feel so relaxed already. I'll probably be home late tomorrow evening. We're thinking of extending the spa day. After we hung up, I just sat there in my living room staring at nothing. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. But the worst part? She was planning to come home and kiss me, sleep next to me, continue this charade like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I watched the camera footage from the beginning, trying to understand the timeline. The motion detection logs showed this wasn't the first time. There were alerts going back weeks, always during times when I was supposedly at work or out of town for business. Monday evening, Celeste came home glowing. She hugged me tight, told me all about the amazing spa treatments and how refreshed she felt. She even brought me a gift, a coffee mug from some tourist shop. "I missed you," she whispered against my ear. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen the footage, I would have believed every word. For the next 2 weeks, I lived in this strange limbo. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening. So I watched. I documented. I gathered evidence while pretending everything was normal. The pattern became clear. Whenever I had business trips, late meetings, or weekend commitments, he would come over. They had a whole routine. He had his own key. She'd given him a copy of our house key. They had favorite restaurants that delivered to our address. They'd even rearranged our furniture to better suit their activities. Through some careful digging, and yes, I'm not proud of checking her phone when she was sleeping, I learned his name was Bradley. He was a divorced businessman who traveled frequently. They'd met at a conference 8 months ago. 8 months of lies, 8 months of betrayal, 8 months of me being the fool who trusted completely. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. Celeste announced another girls' trip, this time a long weekend. By now I knew exactly what that meant, but I was ready. I took Friday off work without telling her. When she left that morning with her overnight bag and her excited smile, I waited exactly 1 hour, then came back home. I positioned myself in our guest room with a perfect view of the front door and waited. At 11 a.m., Bradley arrived. He used his key like he owned the place, like this was his home too. I waited another hour, then walked downstairs. The look on their faces when they saw me in the kitchen, calmly drinking coffee, will stay with me forever. Pure terror mixed with confusion. They were both in our bathrobes, my bathrobe on him actually. "Hey, honey," I said to Celeste, my voice surprisingly steady. "How's the girls' trip going?" What followed was 3 hours of the most surreal conversation of my life. Denials, then partial truths, then finally the whole story. 8 months of affair, feelings involved. They'd talked about a future together. She'd been planning to ask for a divorce, but wanted to be sure first. Bradley, to his credit, looked genuinely ashamed. He apologized repeatedly, said he'd been told I was emotionally abusive and that the marriage was already over. Classic manipulation on Celeste's part. The divorce was finalized 2 months ago. Celeste moved in with Bradley almost immediately. Apparently, that boutique hotel she'd mentioned was actually his condo across town. I kept the house, and I kept the security camera. Not for spying, I'm done with that part of my life. But as a reminder that sometimes the person you trust most is the person you should watch most carefully. The hardest part isn't the betrayal itself. It's realizing how good she was at lying, how easily she looked me in the eye and made me feel loved while planning her escape with someone else. But you know what? I'm better now, really. It took therapy. It took time, but I'm building something real again, something honest. If this story taught me anything, it's that trust isn't about blind faith. It's about choosing someone who's earned the right to your vulnerability. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. And if you're going through something similar, you're stronger than you know. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one. Until next time,